So welcome along to this Blofeld sound design possibilities video. Apologise for the length of time between this and my video on Blofeld in 2020. Thank you for all the views that we've had, and thank you for all the comments. Certainly in the last couple of weeks the comments have rocketed up, and I want to address some of those comments as I go through. Firstly, the first video had some pieces that I found out since. So for instance, there's editors available for the Blofeld, which I didn't know about before. Bigglesworth and one called Soft Knobs. There's also some others which I haven't delved into. I've been looking at Bigglesworth of late, and it's nice, but I still prefer using the hardware. While it's not the most fun, as I mentioned in the previous video, it's not the most fun of sort of editing matrices. And you know, you do have to shift around a lot and move between the different modules. It's still better to me than using a screen. I like to get away from a screen when I am programming a synth. All that said, if you like having a screen for your editing, then check out Bigglesworth at the very least. It's free, it's cross-platform, really nice application. You can also do some other stuff on there. And also, since the first video, I have been looking at user wavetables. So I said I hadn't looked at the application on the PC around user wavetables. Well, thanks to Lou Crow on the Blofeld Facebook group, he got me up and running on this. Shout to you, sir. And a couple of his wavetables right there. I'm not going to play these today, however I've got user wavetables on there, and it certainly opens up even further sound design possibilities for the Blofeld. I've got 3 sounds to play today, and I'm going to link down below, if you look down there somewhere, and link down below to other videos where you can look at patches. Now, I'm only going to do 3 patches here. I'm not a keyboard player, so look down there. There are better videos. You will get bored of the chords that I am playing, okay? But I've got 3 sounds. I've got two sort of pad sounds, and I'm just going to show you the possibilities, what you can do with this sound. And I've got a bass sound to end up with, just to show you the Blofeld can absolutely do bass. Over there, as I point up into that corner, there is a Hydrosynth. It's new in the setup. And I've got to say that the Blofeld still holds up against something like the Hydrosynth. Yes, it hasn't got so many sound design possibilities, but it still holds up. So let's play this sound, which you'd have heard at the start. It's lovely. It's absolutely lovely, and showing the sort of organicness whilst digital sound you can get out of the Blofeld. I believe this is a factory preset. So we're just going to look through this, and I seem to remember that I think this has been created from another patch, and therefore we have oscillator 2 is not used. If we look at the level of oscillator 2, it is not used, which helps me explain to you what I'm going to call silent FM. We're not using any wavetables, so again I can use some wavetables here on the oscillator just to again show you some of the sound design possibilities. Also, some pieces in the mod matrix are not being used either, because if we look at modulation 2, because the LFO2 is oscillating the pitch of oscillator 2. And that is not the case, because oscillator 2 is not being used in any way, shape or form. However, we are going to use that. So as we look into here, I talked about on the first video, FM sources. So what I'm going to show you here is silent FM. Now, whether that's the official name for it, I don't know, but silent FM. Thanks again to the Blofeld Facebook group. If you've got a Blofeld, join that up, because you'll learn loads. Silent FM is where we use oscillator 2 to modulate oscillator 1, but you're not listening to oscillator 2. However, oscillator 2 is modulating oscillator 1 whilst being silent. So if we turn on oscillator 2 as the mod source, the FM source, sorry, we crank it right up, you're going to hear some noise. So straight away you can hear that has affected that sound massively. So let's dial it back a little bit. Oh, I've turned off the oscillator now. Let's dial it back. Let's be gentle. Be gentle with the Blofeld and it will reward you. Stroke it. So you can hear it's just starting to subtly create an oscillation in that oscillator itself, and it's nice. and you can almost hear it kind of doing some pitch modulation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off chorus on this particular patch because I want to show you another tip a bit later on. So I'm going to turn off chorus, and I'm going to turn off the clock delay for now, so we get it all straight down the middle. Suddenly that sound sounds kind of dry, kind of not as nice as it once was. If we start filling here, it's subtle, but if we take it right all the way up, it's getting noisy. It's getting noisy, so I apologise, but it's getting noisy for a reason. So if then we start playing with oscillator 2, so again, the level is down. So as you can hear, much like any FM synth, when you start playing with one of these, what's called an operator, to modulate one of the other oscillators, you start getting this weird and funky sound. So we've cranked up the FM by playing with the D tune, by playing with the semitones. You are changing that sound. So, you know, this becomes another modulation possibility on that oscillator. So if we then go back to the FM source, let's turn it down a bit and get it subtle. And it's nice. So I've turned off the chorus, just step all the way forward to chorus. Now again, another little tip I found, using the modifiers, sorry. Let's select unisono on both. In fact, I think we can do this without even doing that. So go to filter, go to filter pan, back here, filter source, unisono. Crank it all the way up. If you are listening under headphones, you'll hear you suddenly created almost like a chorus sound, a spatial widening, a stereo field. You can dial it back and forth really easily. And the reason for doing that, instead of using chorus, one, you free up an effects slot, which is wonderful. Two, you're freeing up DSP. This synth can start losing voices quite easy when you start whacking all the effects on and, you know, using different modulation sources like the FM. So by getting rid of one of the effect slots, you're freeing up DSP. You may get more polyphony out of it. And that's just really quickly oscillating or modulating the filter pan. Filter panning can be used for other things. You could pan the filter either side. Again, I said this in the first video, you can pan it one way and the other. You can create some very funky effects by sending one oscillator to filter 1, one oscillator to filter 2. What we've done here is we created a stereo widening without using much DSP to create this spatial sound. Okay, we're somewhere now. Let's change this to a wavetable. Let's pick something Foreman. Let's kind of soften it up. Let's turn down oscillator 3, which is being used as kind of a sub oscillator there. There's already some pulse width going on. Remember that the pulse width moves around the wavetable. So if is your 0 to 127 on the wavetable, we're starting at 87, which is kind of there. And you've got pulse width modulation, which is being affected by LFO1. So it's starting there and it's moving up and down like that. And 45 is probably 2/3 of the modulation possibility you have. Go back up to 63 and you've got all of it, and it will go up and down like that. So just remember that this is wavetable movement. So this is shifting through the wavetable. So let's have a listen to that. Getting a beautiful, subtle movement through that. Let's try another formant vocal. There, you're hearing it massive. Bring back in that sub oscillator. So nice. So nice. So that's the beauty of FM. That's the beauty of using the wavetable instead of just a pulse that we had previously. You might have liked the pulse better, you might not. And there we're showing you silent FM using oscillator 2, which is turned down. Oh, it's turned up. Let's turn it back down again. We're using oscillator 2 to modulate oscillator 1 as an FM source. You can do the same in the filters. You may not hear anything necessarily, but we can use oscillator 2 as a filter source. Again, like I said in the first video, we're not even in the mod matrix here. We're doing everything outside of the mod matrix here. We've got some stereo panning coming from filter 1 by using unisono as the mod source. There. Filter 2 is panned very slightly as well. And we've got a modulation source from filter 2, which is your LFO. Create some nice harmonics there, and you know, if we was to put a reverb here, it's not the greatest reverb in the world, but it's a reverb nonetheless. Just add into that more and more. We've not touched any of the envelopes here, we've not touched any of the filters. We're just looking at ways we can take this sound to different places without even using the mod matrix. Just note to the wise here, if you quickly sweep the filter with the cut-off knob there, you do sometimes hear some stepping. If you modulate with an oscillator, modulate it with an LFO, you won't hear that stepping. It's just something to do with the way that's probably a bit too quick. So we touched upon a few things there, and we've put on some reverb into the effects. Like I say, you know, you bring into effects, sometimes you may hit some DSP limits, might get some clicking, but even without any effect, and another tip, bypass your effects to save DSP within the Blofeld. That's dry, that's no effects. So we've used the unisono to spatialize the sound a little bit more into the stereo field. We've used some FM into the oscillator 1, changed the oscillator to a wavetable, and you've just created this wonderful sound. There's so much more we could do. We can have envelopes onto the filter. In the mod matrix, you can, you know, we could put some aftertouch onto the filter cutoff if we wanted to here, which is pressure. Let's put that onto filter 1, cutoff. So that finishes off that sound. I've ruined it. This is not a good sound anymore, but you can see what you can do inside the Blofeld with just a few tweaks and the potential if you're creating a sound from scratch. Let's move to this particular sound here, which is using the comb filter. We'll get the volume right before we kick off. Turn my cord off. It's a very basic sound. We've got a formant vocal again. I like that wavetable. We're using all 3 oscillators here. Lovely clean sound. But what we've done here is we use the comb filter to create some of those harmonics and some of that the higher frequency in the sound. So if I turn that off, well, there's nothing. I'm playing that sound, there's just nothing. Very basic sounds. Let's go back and back to this one again. So the comb filter you can see how the comb filter there is creating its own tone, and with the right cutoff you're in like fifths, fourths, thirds. And I could play that sound all day long. So there's an example of using the comb filter to just create more tones, more harmonics, and almost using it as another oscillator. So what I'm doing is I'm just sending very subtle amounts of the oscillators to that comb filter. We increase that during the sound there while I was playing it, and it's just beautiful. Like I said, I could play that all day long. Really, really nice. So another sound I've got here is a bass called a filter stab. It's my sound. It's a very basic bass sound, but I just wanted to again show you some of the things we could do with this. Let's crank the volume a little bit so it's a little bit louder. It's basic. It's we got a formant again. Seem to love a formant. That's not doing a huge amount because it's so low down. So it's standard. We've got some oscillators going on, nothing too obvious here. Oh no, everything very obvious. We've not even got a filter model on filter 1, but we could, let's put on the PPG or low pass. And all I'm showing you here is that the Blofeld can do bass sounds pretty well. By changing this to something like a saw sweep, heading into slightly more acid territories. I'm going to show you no more of that, but I wanted to show you the bread and butter sounds in the Blofeld are very, very possible. Still got a slightly digital edge to it. I don't think that's a bad thing in the grand scheme of things. So there ends my very basic overview of sound design possibilities in the Blofeld. What is possible, what you can do with the sound. I love creating pad sounds on this because it is just so good at doing that kind of sound. But we can do basses as well. I could have done a little sequence there if you wanted of an acidy kind of sound. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. So here I've done a little sequence with this sound on the key step, which is alongside us here. Not going to blow your minds, but let's go. Simple, effective, and kind of acid. Thank you for watching. I'll be back at some other time with some more sound design. If you want to see anything more, go down in the comments there. If you want to slate me for this video, the more hateful, the better, of course. Only joking. But yeah, pop your comments down there and I will try and cover it on here or just do another noodly video like this. Thanks for watching.